Welcome to the Transformer Unicorn Tales. I'm Katie, your ever transforming host. This is a podcast about awesome transformations, food, for thought, and occasionally unicorns. I am so excited that you're here listening to this. Let's get started. Hello everyone. Today we have another beautiful special guest, and today we are going to talk about something I love, which is love. So, without any further ado, I will let our Mr. Guest introduce herself. Hi.
Hi, Katie. Thank you so much for having me on the Transformer Unicorn Tales podcast. And I'm really honored to be here today with you. And it's a pleasure to see you again. And so my name is Ann Visser, and I have been equipping individuals and organizations for over 20 years now to help them communicate in a way that aligns with their values, because we don't always communicate in the way that we really like, and then we don't like ourselves. And so I do that. I am a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer with For Better Forever, which is the company that I co-founded with my husband, my beloved husband, Melis. And so I train and I teach and I coach in areas of communication and leadership and relationship and mindset and personal growth. And for the past 20 years, I've been training, especially couples and individuals, like particularly women, to teach them to in communication skills and conflict resolution skills. And so I've also been teaching young people and students. I run a course called How to Avoid Falling for a Jerk, which has been written by Dr. John Van Epp, and we're launching that program soon. We run that concurrently. And I've had the opportunity to teach values-based leadership skills and principles to students in Paraguay with John Maxwell, which was a fantastic trip. And so I've also been privileged to teach addicts in recovery in our local jail and in a home for addicts in recovery. And I help them, I support their change from the inside out, transformation from the inside out, but also the transformation that they need within their relationships, because the relationships are so important to support their sobriety. And so I also have a membership for Christian women called the Sisterhood Journey membership. And fun fact, Katie, so Melis and I have been married for 42 years. And together with his family, we own a family farm on beautiful Prince Edward Island in Canada. And I am the mom of 5 amazing adult children and Nana to 11 beautiful grandchildren.
Oh, I love that. You have done so many beautiful things. I love that. It's like I could talk to you for hours because there are just so many topics. So, I like to start at like you said it's been like many years now that you've been guiding other people, and I wonder if if you can recall, you probably can because we always have this story. How did you what sparked it for you in the beginning? So what was like the thing that said, I'm going to do this for others now?
Yes, I do what I do because of the struggles that we experienced in our own marriage. But we didn't start out that way. We are high school sweethearts. I met him when I was 15 and I shamelessly chased him. I just wanted a date. I just wanted a date. So I was writing him letters in school, and I would leave them in his desk, and then he would write back. And, I was fascinated with him because, number one, there was something driving him, and I wanted to know what that was, because he wasn't like the other guys. They were out drinking on the weekends. He was studying. He was a leader in our school. He was the photographer for our school newspaper. He was leading a large group of maritime young people. And I was fascinated with this fella. I wanted to know what is driving him. And so I was very curious about his life and what was happening and who he was. And so I asked many questions in those letters that I was leaving behind. And I did get my date, Katie, obviously.
Yeah.
And I still remember 3 years later, we married, and I still remember the photographer said to us, "I have never seen a couple look at each other the way the 2 of you look at each other." And so we were just so crazy, crazy in love, right? And then I was pregnant 1 month after we were married and very, very sick on the couch. I couldn't move. And then we had 5 children in 6 years. And my husband, he was new to farming, and that was hard. It was a hard start, and he often came home frustrated. So we had busy farm life, and then we had crazy family life. And this we grew apart gradually, and my friend calls it creeping separateness, and I like that phrase because that's what it felt like. It kind of snuck up on us, but it created an emotional distance in us. And so we had these external things that were pressing in on our marriage, and I think a lot of couples do. It's life is chronic crazy, right? And so there are external things, whether it's grief or retirement or whether it's just starting a family. There are so many external things that can press in. Maybe it's, um, I hear a lot of challenges in the workplace that comes home, and that creates challenges in the marriage unless we have the skills to deal with those things, to be able to communicate. And that's what we didn't have. So we didn't have the skills that we needed in order to communicate the challenges that we were facing, and what we were feeling and what was happening inside of us. And so that's why this emotional distance grew in us. And that's why I do what I do. On one particular night, we were sitting in our farm truck. It was supposed to be a date. I don't know why these things happen on dates. But I looked at him, and I was really at the end of my rope, and I said to him, I cannot do this anymore. And he looked at me, and I could see the fear and the panic in his eyes. And he said, "What do you mean you can't do this anymore?" I said, "I cannot do marriage like this anymore." And now I know that was a really disruptive statement to make. And I wasn't wanting out of the marriage, but I didn't want the marriage like it was truly anymore. And we, for the first time in a long time, that somehow opened him up, and he shared then his heart with me. And I hadn't heard his heart in a long time because I
Yeah.
was so busy caring for all these little needs that our children had. And then I was also very wrapped up in my own pain. And so I missed his pain. But that night he shared that with me. And we both agreed that we would get the help that we needed in order to get well again. And I think I tell my people, man, it's the bravest thing in the world you can do to get help. And I say, get help sooner than later. Like, don't let all that pain build up, because then we have to kind of go through all that pain and that hurt that we cause each other. So get help sooner. And I tell my people, I do pre-marriage. And when they're getting ready for marriage, I say at the end, I say, okay, when you run into trouble, you come to me, and you might be like, we may be 15 minutes and we'll work through that issue, and you're going to do better. Don't wait until it builds up. And I say when, not if, because we all run into trouble, struggles. We all need help at some point in time. And it's the bravest, best thing in the world that we can do, to get help sooner than later, to deal with things when they're little and not these big insurmountable mountains that we have to walk through. So it was because of that pivotal conversation and that decision that we made to get well that put us on a personal growth journey individually and together, to learn skills that we needed to learn in order to be better together. That pivotal conversation changed everything for us. And now I recognize that these pivotal conversations happen every single day. They're very small or they're huge, big conversations that we have that make a big shift in the relationship. And so we also have these at work. We have these with our children, whether they're little ones or whether they're adult children. We have them with our sisters, our brothers, our mothers, our fathers. So this is why I do what I do, because of the difference that learning these skills has made, learning how to communicate healthy, learning how to fight in a healthy way, um, so that we can be better together at home. And those then skills also spill over into work, and we get better at work too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was a life-changing conversation that we had that changed everything for me personally, because now very soon after, when we started to get better again, Melis looked at me and he said, "We can't keep this to ourselves. We have to share this with other people." So it really was a life-changing event, and why I went for coaches training, eventually why we worked not in a nonprofit organization to help people be better in their relationships, and that's when we formed For Better Forever, long before it was actually a business. We were training and coaching and teaching people how to communicate more effectively and how to be better together in their relationships. I know, this is one thing I know for sure. I know that if I can have healthy, pivotal conversations, because I am a peace loving conflict avoider, I am a recovering people pleaser. I know that other people can learn these valuable skills, and it can make a world of difference in their personal life with themselves and with the people around them as well.
Yeah, yeah. What a magical story. I love it. Mm, I was thinking for me, I always called it my magical jar. I would put all my anger, my everything, like as a people pleaser, you put all of your, but I don't think I you just in the jar and then you close it. And like you said, the more stuff you put in the jar, the harder it is to open it because it just goes poof. And then there's just so much to unpack.
Mhm.
And how or what do you think are the things that help you recognize when you do that thing when you go, I'm just going to put this away for later? I feel like, especially in relationships, um, when it's not really a healthy kind of relationship, you kind of start to keep score. You go like, I'm going to remember this for later, and you put it in the jar. So how could you do you have any tips for recognizing when you, instead of healthy open communication, you go, I'm just going to jar it for later, like, yeah.
The cue for me that I am stuffing something like that is that I start to feel a little bit of resentment, and I start to feel a little bit anxious. And then when I think about that person, it immediately goes to poor thoughts. And so then I start to kind of catch those thoughts like, they don't care about me. They're not really interested in what I have to say. Um, and so then I catch it in my feelings and I catch it in my thoughts. So those feelings that I'm feeling of resentment or feeling a little bit anxious, it's kind of the first clue for me that I need to go what I call my thinking chair and spend some time journaling and thinking through, what am I feeling? And I'm a slow processor, Katie, and it's one of the reasons why things build up, because I am slow, but now I know that. And so I have a thinking chair so that I can journal through some of those things. And I've learned too that that's a skill. And the more I do it, the better I get at it. So the quicker I'm able to recognize those feelings and emotions, and the quicker I'm able to recognize those thoughts that aren't serving me. I like to think about thoughts are either serving me, they're helping me, have a better day, be a better person, or they're not helping me. They're not helping me in my relationship or in my own relationship with myself, even. And so those are the first kind of clues for me that I need to go and do some journal work and figure out what is going on, because in the midst of it, it can feel like kind of a tangled web and a little bit hard to sort out. But I find as I'm sitting and thinking, and these are exercises that I actually give my people to sit and ask yourself these questions. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What is really troubling me here? What is worrying me? Because I feel that worry and kind of that weight of either that relationship or that conversation. What is really troubling me? And then what is it that I really want? And I find sometimes, even just in journaling out those questions, I discover not only more about myself, more about the situation, but then I also recognize whether I need to go further with the conversation, and maybe I don't. And sometimes, just even in recognizing the feelings that I'm feeling, I can talk myself through it. It's like, okay, that thought is not serving you. Why is that thought not serving you? Well, because this person has a really good track record of loving me. And so that thought that they don't care, that's not true. That's a lie. And that is so incredibly helpful to kind of process through those thoughts once I recognize the cues that, okay, something's going on here. Let's go work it out. If I'm not able to work it out on the fly, because sometimes the skill gets better and sometimes I can, and then other times it's too big for me to do on the fly and I need to actually sit with it and journal through it and think it through.
Yeah. I love what you're saying. I think um as I also have conversations with my clients, of course it's not about love, but it's about the transformation. And sometimes it's like I know I'm having like something, like some kind of resistance, but I just can't figure it out. And then you keep going on. But then you like miss that point of like you said, like there's this slow processing speed. Like you're not really caught up with your what's happening. And then to just sit down and like journal it out, that's like yeah, I think that's also what I do as a transformational coach. Like sit down. Let's talk. Let's figure out what's happening here and then we can move on.
There's
And
I love that word resistance. That's a good word, Katie, because that's what it feels like, right? It's a resistance because this is what we want. But these thoughts and feelings and whatever else is going on, whether there's lies that we're believing, are in the way. They're like roadblocks in the way of what it is that we want. So that's a good word, resistance.
yeah. And I just had another question or thought. Sometimes, like especially as you become more as you start to like grow in your as yourself in yourself and you discover more who you are or what you want to do and you also become better at communicating your own needs. Sometimes people don't respond the way you want them to or they don't respond like how where you are, I would say. And also just in general, sometimes you talk to people and you're like this conversation, we're just talking at each other, not to each other. Um, if you have any tips for what to do when the lines are not really connected.
Yeah, exactly. And so that was the first C that I shared with you of check emotions to journal through those questions. And then that's the second C that you moved into is to communicate and clarify. And so I like to give the expectation that a pivotal conversation, it doesn't just, it's not one and done. And because the lines get crossed and because we don't always agree. And so I like to give that expectation, first of all, that give yourself permission to have the conversation more than once and give your people permission to have the conversation more than once. And then if when you communicate those thoughts, feelings, and what it is that you want or what it is that you need, which is a great question, by the way, what do you need? Um, I encourage my people to do it really clearly and succinctly so that um, almost like you're in a court of law in a way, so that it's not in a whole haystack, like the needle in the haystack, where your people have to go diving into the haystack to kind of figure out what is the point here? What is it that you really want? So it's really clear. And so that it's really important to clarify what it is that you want, because then your other person is more clear on what that is. But then invite feedback, invite what is it that they're thinking? What is it that they want? Because oftentimes it's a surface thing that we're fighting about. It's not the real thing in the beginning. And that's where we want to get to that real thing. What is really worrying you here? Um, I remember when my kids would go out in the evening and come home late at night, and I would purposefully stay working in my kitchen or come back to my kitchen as they were coming home to create space to have conversation, because I was thinking the goal here is connection. I want connection with my kids, and I want to create a space where if they want to talk about what happened while they were out, or if they want to talk, and teenagers want to talk late at night, by the way, that I created this space that there was opportunity for that if they wanted to do that. To think about what is the goal in mind here. And I like my people to think about what is the goal for your relationship? What is the goal for your marriage? What is the goal for your workplace? So if the goal is I want to save my job, that's very different than I don't want to work in a toxic workplace. They need to decide that. A coach cannot decide that for them, because that determines how they move forward in and how they work forward in that. And so that goal is really helpful to know and then to clarify how they're going to move forward. So
Yeah.
when you're not on the same page, it's really helpful to invite the other person to share what's going on. Hopefully you get new information in in the midst of that conversation that can help you know. For example, if my husband has had to fire somebody today, which he has a great crew, he has a great team. But if he had to fire somebody today, he is going to come home really, really grumpy. I know that because relationships are so important to him. Whenever he has personnel problems, he comes home troubled and he comes home upset and he comes home anxious. And so I kind of get that outward stuff. But unless I go to the questions and hear about his day, I don't really know why I'm getting that, all that anxiety and all that worry. And so I can think it's about me. And I can think, well, what is his problem anyway? Well, like, why is he taking it out on me? And then when I hear more of the story, all of a sudden there's more compassion and more understanding for, okay, I'm really sorry that happened to you today. And because I know that you really care about your people. And sometimes that statement right there can help to bring someone around, so that then you're all of a sudden talking about the real challenge or the real problem.
Yeah. Suddenly the word intention came to me. I think there should also, like you called it, a goal. I think for me that's like an intention for the conversation. Because especially when I'm still processing things in my head, I will tell my partner something and then he would be like, "But what do you want?" And I would be like, "Okay, I started this conversation without having a clear intention." So I would be like, "I don't actually know." And but then I think a beautiful question at that point is I sometimes ask him, "Can you help me figure it out?" Because otherwise
Mm.
what we do, I just keep talking and he just keeps talking and we're like, "But where are we going with this?" And yeah, to just have the intention, and not just with a partner, but with any conversation. If there's no intention, it's kind of just an empty chit chat.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love that question that you're asking him, Katie. Can you help me? I don't know what it is. Can you help me work that through? That's a great question to ask somebody that you really trust and feel safe with, to help you work through that. Are you a verbal processor, Katie?
Sometimes with special people, yes. And otherwise I also just journal a lot.
Yes. Yeah. I can be a verbal processor, Katie. So sometimes I have to say to my husband, this is not the gospel truth. Like, I'm just processing here. Like, I'm not at the end yet. I just need to get my way there. Because sometimes he can look at me and say, what? Is that the way you really think? I was like, no, no, no. I'm just working my way through this.
Yeah. No, I recognize it. With my partner I do that, yes. With other people not that much. But with my partner, yes. Then I'd be like, oh yeah, wait a second, let's go back a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
So, as a people pleaser, you were asking the question, when you're not on the same page, how do you work that through? And one of the things that I like to teach my people who are extraordinarily kind and struggle with saying what they really mean is to think about being assertive, but not attacking, neither avoiding. We know that avoiding important conversations is detrimental to relationship. Avoiding connection is detrimental to relationship. I think Dr. John Gottman calls it one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse, like it's really bad for relationship. And so, to think about being assertive, and once they can process through what it is they want, what they're feeling, and what they're thinking, it's much easier then to be more assertive because they know exactly what it is that they want to say going into the conversation. And they can say, I feel, I think, I want, or what I really need is. And that can really help them in their assertive conversations so that they're not attacking. When we don't know what we really want and we got a whole lot of feeling going on, a whole lot of emotion, then it's easy to kind of come at the other person and attack them. And they feel it. They feel that we've attacked them. And when that's really not our intent, not our intention, and not what we really want in the conversation. And so that sense of being assertive and being able to assertively say what is on our mind and what we're really worried about, what we're really troubled about, um, can be really important and very, very helpful to clarify and to help the other person understand where you are, and then to get that feedback. So I like also to help my people focus on dialogue rather than monologue. um, when the other person feels that we've heard them and we understand, what's going on in their day or in their life or in their head, then there is more of a sense that we're on the same team. And then we can create some solutions that feel like we solutions, which is our third C of pivotal conversations. So the first C is to check emotions, and the second is to communicate and clarify. But that third C is to create we solutions. And when we feel like we're on the same team, it feels much more doable to create that we solution. Okay, so how do we move on from here? What do we do? What will help you? Tonight, recently, my husband had a really bad day. Okay, this is kind of funny. He had a really bad day with some personnel problems at work, and I said to him, "Okay, so what do you need today? What would make today a better day?" And he thought for a minute, and then he said, "I need a cherry pie."
I love that.
And I laughed like everything. There's a little bit of history to the cherry pie. So when he was going away to school, he had to travel to the next province, and so we didn't see each other all week for 2 years, and then he would come home every weekend, and so I couldn't cook worth anything, but I could bake. So every weekend I baked him a cherry pie. So when he said that, I was flooded with these happy memories of, anxiously waiting. Everybody at school knew when it was Friday and knew that Melis was coming home tonight. And and on Saturday morning, I would be baking a cherry pie.
I love that. Yeah. How also the food is then connected to the good memories. Like, I need the cherry pie feeling now.
Yeah, take me back there. Just take me back there. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just thinking, especially about the people pleasing part, because I know, and still sometimes I struggle with it when I want to say something, but I just don't know how. And then I still go into that, I'm just going to put this away for later. So to just even start the conversation, there's like not enough empowerment from inside to start the conversation. And then not necessarily with the partner, but just at work, for example, or with other relationships in our lives. Do you have tips for the people who are at the beginning of the conversation to how to start up the conversation when
Yeah.
you feel like you can't?
Sure. I don't like the phrase "we have to talk." It kind of raises cortisol immediately when we hear that phrase. We have, what did I do now? It feels like you're coming into the principal's office all over again, right? We have to talk. I like it to come more naturally. For instance, let's say somebody's hanging around your desk and you're not getting your work done. So this week, you've been at my desk a lot. And that means that I've had to stay at work late twice this week. And that means that my daughter is at home waiting for me and she misses me. And I want to spend more time with her. I want to get every minute out of the day that I can with her. And so today, I need you not to be at my desk. So I like it to flow naturally and not that we have to talk. So it's a pivotal conversation. They don't necessarily know that it's a pivotal conversation coming, but you've been very clear about what it is that's happening and what it is that you need differently. But you've given her the why too. And I think, or him, whoever that is, you've given them the why. And I think that's really important to give them the why. I am just so tired at the end of the day and I don't have anything left. I need to get my work done on time, or I have a husband waiting for me at home and I love being with him and I can't wait to get home to him. I need to be at home. I need to be at home at 5:30 or whatever the time is, really clear and concise. I hope that's helpful, Katie. I think it's really helpful to not do the "we have to talk" conversation, but instead naturally flow into it. This is what's happening. This is the why, and this is what I want.
Yeah. I think the why already gives you the power a little bit because you also know why. Yeah, I think that definitely helps because sometimes
That's
it's hard to start a conversation because
it.
we
It
have to talk is so
I know, right? And it feels awkward and it feels uncomfortable. And I think we feel that in our body. And therefore, we kind of run from that feeling in our body, but it really is in our body. And knowing exactly what we want to say, I get my people to practice too what they want to say. And then knowing the why, I think that's so true. You're right on that, Katie. Knowing the why gives me power. This is worth this conversation. This why is too important for me not to have the conversation. And so that you're right, that does empower us to enter into the conversation, even though our bodies are feeling the feeling, our emotions are feeling the feeling. Cortisol is rushing through our bodies and we're feeling all of that emotion. I can almost feel with you, you're kind of vibrating a little bit when you have to enter into that conversation, and it can make it hard and uncomfortable. I think one of the myths about pivotal conversation is that when you're good at it, you don't feel the feelings, or you don't feel uncomfortable, or you don't feel that anxiety. Everybody feels that at some point or other with some conversations, but they still have the conversations because either the relationship is worth it, either the relationship with ourselves, the relationship with our people at work, or our people at home. And so then even that little piece of knowledge, I think, can be so helpful to give us the courage to step into an uncomfortable, difficult conversation and move forward through the conversation.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's like that's like that gives you the power. Even just listening to you, I'm like, yes, you feel all the feelings, but like I'm gonna do this. And I see that it's almost time to finish. And I just wanted to say that I think the most amazing moment is when you have the conversation and people are like, "Oh, that's okay." And you go like, "I've been sweating for like 2 days. I prepared."
Right.
And you just say it's okay. And I think that's what makes them like we all have new conversations that we have to have, but the ones that we already have become slightly easier because we just get the response like, "Oh, that's okay." It's like, "Oh, that's totally fine." And I think that's like so magical. Like once you start, you will get the responses that you actually like. It's just magical. It just happens, and you're like, "Oh, that wasn't that hard."
Exactly, because as we have those conversations, we get better at having the conversations. And if we can enter into them without expressing so much anxiety, it can help the other person have that softer start to the conversation. It can help the other person kind of draw into the conversation rather than kind of push away from you and from the conversation. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, as last thing, I want to ask if people would be struggling with having conversations, how can they reach you? How can they connect with you?
Yeah, well, I have a free gift to give your people. I would love to share that with your audience. So it's a free resource. And if you've been listening and you've thought of a pivotal conversation that you need to have, and this free resource is called the 7-Day Challenge to help you get ready for your next pivotal conversation. So each day we send a short video to your inbox, your email, with a simple action step. I love action steps to help you prepare step by step for your next pivotal conversation. So you can go from not knowing what to say or even how to approach that pivotal conversation to knowing what it is that you want to say and get ready for your next pivotal conversation. And I've had some great reviews on this 7-day challenge, and I can't wait to hear from you. So by all means, message me. In order to pick up that 7-day challenge, you can go to our company name, which is For Better Forever. That's the numerical number for better, numerical number forever.com/challenge. And that's the best way to stay in touch with me, because once you sign up for that challenge, you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter, which is called the Tuesday Brew with Ann. I love a cup of coffee, several actually, Katie. So it's called Tuesday Brew with Ann. And there I share weekly communication tips to help you communicate in a way that aligns with your values.
Yeah, so all the links will be also below or above or somewhere on the sides, wherever you're listening to it, somewhere else every time, so that people can connect with you. And I just really want to thank you for sharing all the amazing stories and love stories with me and everyone else that's listening today. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. A great big thank you, Katie, for having me on the Transformer Unicorn Tales podcast. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Yeah, it was really nice to see you. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.